Hey guys, I hope everybody's having a fantastic day, whether you're watching this in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening. I'm glad you're here. Today I wanted to go through and pick out my 10 top knives that are from another place of origin, right? They might have been designed here, OEM somewhere else, right? China, most of them, or some of them other places. Some of them we don't know, but we know they're not USA made. But we do know in a lot of cases that they were designed here. Um, and what I wanted to do is go through my collection very objectively and pick out the ones that I think are the best of the best. Um, there'll be a knife that y'all have all seen missing here that is kind of my number one and done if I had to pick it, which has always been the Field Duty EDC. That has not changed. I'm still in love with the Field Duty EDC by Leon Ma, but I want to talk about some other super cool knives that I love very much. And if you guys don't mind, I want to just take a second to thank all my channel members. Thank you all for what you do. I also want to invite any of you who might be so inclined who haven't yet to hit that subscribe button and that bell notification icon. Let YouTube know you're not a bot and you're actually interested in knife and EDC content. Hopefully give you more opportunities to see my content as I create it, and hopefully share it for more people to see it. The first knife that I want to start with is probably going to be the largest in this group, and it is the Grant Gripper. It is designed by Jason Grant out in California, and it was OEM'd by Bestech. This knife is, to me, it's got multiple different deployments. So it's a front flipper that I just missed, has a traditional flipper, and it's got the deployment hole. Frame lock, the only marking on this knife is the little G, which is the Jason Grant G. It's got a 3/4 inch full back spacer. It's got a hollow ground blade. Very pokey, very long, very slicey. It's going to come in right under 4 inches, but that hollow grind is very slicey. It did have bronze pivot collars. I was lucky and got a set of the black pivot collars to nightmare it out. I want to say the blade is S35, but it may be M390. I could look it up, but I'm just not remembering. In either case, it's been great. The action on the knife is fantastic. The frag on the handle fits me perfectly in the regular grip. I can also choke up since the jimping extends to the end of the blade. It's got this real nice fuller that runs down the length of the blade. And again, to me, it's just a fantastic knife and one of my top knives in my collection. So that is the Jason Grant Gripper, not from these shores, but it was born here in concept and design, and I think it's a fantastic knife. So as we move on, we come to a knife by Ramon Chavez. And this is one of the smaller Chavez production knives, and this is the Street, the Redencion Street. This is the drop point variation. They also make this in a Tonto. This is kind of like a mini 229, so it's going to be a little bit shorter, right around a 3-inch blade. Um, for me and the size that my hands are, it is the perfect size for a small to medium sized knife. I like it, and the reason it's one of my favorites is it feels very chunky. It is very substantial, even for a smaller knife. I've got the version with the G10 and the titanium frame lock. The blade is M390. It is a deep hollow grind with a compound grind, even though it's not a 10 toe. Hold on, guys. Tippy was going to walk through. Apologize for that. But anyway, so you've got a hollow grind, even though it's a drop point, you've got the hollow grind up here at the main area of the blade, and then you've got this flat up at the front. And it's very slicey, both on the hollow grind and up towards the point. So even though you've got that compound grind, you've got a knife that is not only tuned in terms of action, in terms of the actual feel, the way it carries, the way it reverse flicks. I'm gonna have to fight the cat, guys. And it's just another great frame lock. Yeah, I wish the stuck with the regular skull clip, but those eyebrows don't bother me too much. So that is the Chavez Redencion Street, and that is another one of my favorite knives that was designed here, but not produced here. And I'll quit saying that every time. So moving on, we will come to a very unique knife in my collection, and one that is a Snex design that was manufactured by We. This knife, I don't even know where to start. It makes me feel fantastic. It's a knife that I saw after the fact at Blade Show. I'm sure you guys have heard that story, so I won't tell it again. But the bottom line is, I passed on it at Blade Show, didn't know what it was. Saw what it was when I got back to the room that night, realized I'd missed out on a super special knife, and then had to chase it for the better part of 2.5, 3 months before I found it. But the We Vision R, which is a Snex design, is a very unique, what I call a minimalist, fidgety gentleman's knife. It is thin, it is titanium handles, it's got a 20 CV, nice flat ground blade that is extremely, extremely slicey. It's got a very nice finger choil, depending on where you want to grip it. It's got a very unique pocket clip that works fantastically well. Hold on one sec, guys. But it has that finger choil that works fantastically well. It's a flipper only deployment, but since it is the Snex lock, which is operated by pulling back on that right there, that's what actually locks up the knife, and that's what releases it. So if you wanted to just flip it when you pull that lock back, you can. I use it as either a middle finger flipper or a thumb flicker because it's not a frame lock, truly ambidextrous, 20 CV in titanium, and that is the We Vision R. Fantastic knife. Moving on, we'll talk about the Joseph Vero and Vero Engineering, and the knife that I've added to my collection of his, which is the Vero Axon. I love this knife. It is one of my favorites. It is what I consider understated elegant. It is micarta handled with titanium liners. It is an M390 blade that has a really nice belt satin. It has stone washing here in the cutouts for the blade. Really nice lock bar. Really nice flipping action. Also a front flipper if you want to deploy it that way. I think the micarta looks really nice. I love the backspacer, the long backspacer. I'm a fan of the clip. It is a medium-sized knife to a full-size knife, but it carries very light because it is a very not heavy light knife. It is light. It is just that backspacer, those thin liners, and that micarta. So the Vero Axon, which was manufactured by Bestech, was again designed here in the States. It was OEM'd abroad, and it's a knife that I really, really like. So as we move on, we will come to a Riot produced knife that was designed here by Renegade Provisions. This is the God of Mischief, or the GOM. It is, in my opinion, one of the finest imported knives that I have in my collection. It's just made that well. It just seems that refined to me. It's this flat grind worn clip with this very sharp deployment hole. One thing that it's a front flipper that's very easy to articulate because it's got that tall flipper tab. Again, I'm not a front flipper guy, but the thumb flick, I missed it there, works fine. I'm not a thumb flick guy. The reverse finger flick is tuned to money. It is the way that I open the knife. It's a drop shutty knife. The seams, the micarta, and the way it marries with this black titanium, the black titanium pivot collars, this DLC coated blade that is super slicey, all kind of marry together to make this one of the biggest surprises in my collection and definitely one of my favorites. Yeah, you'll see a little nail dust in that hole because I do flip it that much, but I just can't get by with that noise. I mean, it's just so good. The choil and the grip with those contoured scales is so good. It's just a fantastic knife. And that is the God of Mischief, the GOM, Renegade Provisions. So as we move on, we've got 5 more knives to look at. Let's start with another big surprise in my collection. This is the Quiet Carry 9. It is in CPM 20CV. It is a tall, flat ground blade, titanium that is milled on both sides, has a fantastic frame lock and access to the lock bar, thumb studs that are dialed to perfection, manufactured places unknown. I do not know, and Quiet Carry does not really disclose that. But the pocket clip, this milled titanium pocket clip, this milling on the titanium, the blade stock, the blade thickness, the blade sharpness, the materials, the look, the action, and just the way the knife carries and makes me feel makes it one of my top 10 imported knives, one that I think will always be in the collection, and one that I just really love. So that is, we'll call it what, call it number 6? I don't know. But anyway, we're getting down there. We've got 4 more to look at. So, and these are not in any particular order. They're just the way that I'm grabbing them. So next up, we've got a knife that was designed by Beyond EDC and produced and released by Bestech. Don't know what happened there, but I know that this knife, I just hit the mat with that. This knife has been very, very pleasing. It's almost in some ways reminiscent of the Axon, but I think it's superior or has grown from several different things there. For example, this blade steel has a beautiful vertical belt satin on this deep, deep, deep hollow grind blade. I mean, super, super deep. Probably one of the deepest hollow grinds I have. But it is an LMAX steel. It's not in 20CV. It's not an S35. It's not an M390. It's an LMAX. You've got really nice titanium bolsters, and what I think some of the finest micarta with these titanium liners, a clip that works great, a sharpening choil that's done right, action that's just dialed. It is a flipper only knife, but it flips great whether you thumb flick it or you use your middle finger to flick it, as I can't spit that out. And this grip is unique in a lot of ways in that because you have these different areas in the poon or in this blade, there are different places that you can put your finger for different grips that you might use this knife for. Yeah, it's also probably designed to make it look different, but they all, even though you don't have jimping on them, they're all very functional, and I find my finger rests in there quite a bit depending on what I'm cutting. But we would call that the next knife on our list, right? I don't know exactly which one that is, but I think we've got 3 more to look at. So let's jump into it with the Brian Brown Jagerim, designed by Brian Brown Knives, manufactured by Riot. I think this is the second or third generation or production runs of this knife. This knife is in my top 5 without a doubt. I love this knife. It is a little bit shorter than the other knives, so it would be what I would call a medium-sized knife. I love the way it feels in my hand. I love the detent. I love the configuration I got, which was the micarta with the titanium and the DLC coated blade. It is a frame lock. It is M390. It is a flipper only because I chose it that way. You could also get this with a flipper, or excuse me, a flipper and the blade hole. I got the flipper delete version, which means you can only flick it, but that's the way I wanted it. And that is the Brian Brown Jagerim. Fantastic knife. I love it. Moving on, we come to a knife by John Rusk. John and Jamie Rusk are EMP EDC. They started their company out at the beginning of the pandemic with the Nimble. And in terms of a domestic designer who works with a couple of overseas companies to get his dreams manufactured, I think he does and they are doing as well as anyone that I bump into. I feel like every one of their knives gets better. This is the QS or the ESPN. Yeah, what am I thinking? You can wonder what time I'm recording this video, guys. But this is the EMP EDC Relative. This was actually manufactured by Bestech. His earlier knives, the Nimbles, were manufactured by QSP. They were done very well. He had the Thick Boy manufactured by Bestech early on. It was done very well. This knife raises the game in what I feel like is production and design, in that the action is so well tuned. It's a front flipper or a hole deployer. There is no rear flipper, but you don't miss it. The knife, again, is so well tuned. This is the drop point version. You've got a deep hollow grind and this compound flat, and this drop point even comes to a little point. I don't know if you can see it right there, but I could sharpen this like a Tanto, or I could sharpen it like a drop point. I'll probably won't have to sharpen it. It's L-Max. It is very sharp. It is very elegant. It's I love the sounds. I love the look. I love the way it carries. The choil is perfect. The grind is perfect. It's just a knife that I am absolutely in love with. And that would be the second to the last one of my top 10, which would make that number 2 if you were doing it by numbers, which we're not. Which brings us to the final and my other favorite top 10 imported knives that were designed here by Brian Nadeau and manufactured overseas, Riot. This is the little mini Typhoon. And this knife came in a Bowie clip point, or it came in a more traditional drop point. I got the Bowie at the time because I love the look of the Bowie. In hindsight, I would have gotten the drop point only because you have a little bit more of this fuller available, so it makes it more reliable to middle finger flick. Still pretty reliable to middle finger flick, and it's got a fantastic top flipper. I mean, you cannot fail this knife. The detent is absolutely on point. It's small, it's elegant. It's got this nice bolster lock, drop shutty. It's got this beautiful satin M390 blade. It is carbon fiber inlay. I think the pocket clip is done very well. The centering and the actual drop of this blade, and I won't even call it the drop, I'll call it just kind of the hydraulics on how these two detent balls work with those bearings to make this knife ultra smooth. It's probably, in all truth, the smoothest knife in my collection. That doesn't make it my favorite. It just is the best, most well balanced, maybe, or something about it is different. Something about it's special in the way that it handles, right? In the way that it feels. So, guys, those are from my collection that I picked out myself, the knives that I think are my top 10 knives from across the shores that were designed here, but they were OEM somewhere else. And curious about what you guys think. If you guys agree with some of my choices, if you have other choices, what you think about knives that are designed here by people who put their blood, sweat, and tears in it, but then sometimes have to go somewhere else to have it made because one reason or another makes it hard to do it here, you know? I just don't really go into that too much because my channel is about how knives make me feel, and all these knives and all the people that I've met that have had their hands in the design of these knives are fantastic people. With that, guys, I want to thank you for watching the video. I want to thank you for stopping by the channel. I want to thank every one of my channel members. And then I want to ask if you'll please look out for the guy or gal to your left. Please look out for the guy or gal to your right. Look out for each other. Go forward with love in your heart. Choose debate, not hate. I love you all. Peace.